Dun, 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 dun. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cash Physical Therapy Headquarters Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about why you're not getting the yes out of the prospects you're talking to on the phone, whether they're, it's just on the phone, whether it's in the clinic, whatever it might be. We're going to break down the fundamental foundations that have to be in place for any script, any talk tracks, any objection handling, any of that stuff that you might be learning about through Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts or getting scripts and downloading them from other coaches online, and why you're still struggling with it, because it's not because you're not good at sales. And so today we're going to cover a lot of different things that we teach all of our clients before we give them any scripts, before we give them any processes, systems, develop their skill sets, anything. We're going to give you the foundation, because without the foundation, all of the power of any scripts, resources that you're trying to utilize are just going to fall completely flat. And it is a great time because, Ben, aren't you working on this with your team?
Yeah. At the end of the day, if you don't have, you can have all the scripts and the perfect wording and whatnot, but if you don't have that conviction and that belief that that you can truly help somebody and also feel good about the phone call and how you're doing the scripting and the calls, it's just not going to land the same.
Right. And so today we got to talk about what sales actually is. And so we're going to talk about the prerequisites to ethical persuasion. So let's start off with this, like what sales is and what it is not. Okay. Sales, when done ethically, is persuasion. Okay. It's not convincing. It's a very important distinction. When you're finding yourself having to convince people, it's because you're trying to win them over with logic and you're trying to get them to see your point of view. Okay, that's convincing. When you're trying to use logical deduction, my credentials, I'm so good at this, I've helped so many people, here's all the things you're going to get inside of this program, yada, yada, yada. That's all logic based, and you're trying to win them over. Okay, persuasion, however, is when you get someone to come to their own conclusion for their own reasons. Okay, that's what ethical persuasion is. And so we're going to be talking about how do we ethically persuade someone? How do we go into these conversations so that we can feel comfortable, confident, and not pushy? So let's dive right on into it so that you can start to learn how to enroll people with conviction, get people excited to get scheduled with you, regardless of what it is that you're charging, so that you can get yes more often without pressure. So let's get right into it. So I think, Ben, there's a pretty uncomfortable truth I think we got to share. Do you remember what it was? From the training yesterday? It's that a lot of you are letting patients stay stuck. You're allowing them to continue to do things that aren't working and maintaining a lifestyle that is taking them further and further away from what it is that they want, because you're afraid of rejection and sounding greedy. You're afraid to apply pressure, and in so doing, you are allowing people to stay stuck and not get the help that they actually need to move forward. And honestly, people should feel kind of bad about that. It's like people don't like sales because they don't like applying pressure to people that need their help, right? We're all givers, healers, all of that stuff. But a lot of providers that we work with, they say that, they don't like sales because it's not ethical, all of those things. And they say that they don't want to learn sales for like moral reasons. But that's just like vanity. It's just like their egos. Your ego is lying to you if that's what you think, because the real reality is you're afraid of sounding greedy, of sounding pushy, of seeming like you're in this for the money. Because there is a very easy framework to ethically challenge someone's beliefs, lead them to shift those beliefs so that they come to the right conclusion to finally make a change for their health, for their own reasons. That's how it's supposed to be done. So a lot of people, you're getting no's all the time, and you're resisting developing the skill set of sales for reasons that aren't your true reasons. You're lying to yourself. Do you see that with some of your staff, Ben?
Yeah, especially starting on, it's normal because they've been just an insurance-based model for for so long, and it feels different. Like we talked about in the training this week was um, that you tie sales being negative because you reflect on the icky sales experience that you had in the
Yeah.
past, and you think that's how all sales is, and that's not sales.
Hmm.
That's not sales, but that's what you attribute sales to being, and so you were hesitant to doing it. So it's flipping the mindset of like what is sales like when it's done wrong,
Hmm.
and what it's like when it's done right. And so
Right.
it's teaching people the right way to do sales, because there's nothing, in my opinion, there's nothing more unethical than not being willing to experience maybe 5 to 10 minutes of discomfort doing sales in exchange for helping somebody be able to avoid a lifetime of discomfort of being unhealthy.
Right. I mean, are you really reaching your full potential as a healer if you know exactly how to solve someone's like life limiting problem, but you don't develop the skill to help people understand the value of actually doing that and learn what false and limiting beliefs they have preventing them from changing their life? Like you're not operating at your highest level if you don't develop that skill set. And I like what you're saying about how like people have a negative connotation with sales because they only remember their negative sales experiences. Well, on the other side of that, like no one remembers their positive sales experiences because it didn't feel like sales, because it felt like it was their own idea. No one sold me, it was my idea. That is real sales. That is persuasion. When you have the right environment, the right inputs that get your mind coming to its own conclusion that you need this and it's for your own reasons, not someone else's reasons that they told you to try to convince you need it, for your own reasons. That's what sales is, and it's actually extremely easy to do. You just have to ask the right questions. You have to understand what are the reasons that people say no to a sale, and how do you ask questions to overcome all of those reasons so that by the time you even make an offer, they're like, I'm already in.
Mhm.
Okay. It's actually a really easy trainable thing to do. But until you have these beliefs around sales and what it actually is, you're not going to do it. Before we go into it, I want to walk you all through an experience that every single one of us has had. You're probably experiencing this right now. Ben and I haven't experienced this in a while because what clinical marketer, we just crossed $7 million in sales. Ben, I'm sure you're always just a little bit ahead. Do you remember? Do you have an idea?
I think we're right around 9. I think we're approaching 10. I'll have to go into Peach Everywhere and see what we're at for cash collected.
Dang, you
But
pulled ahead over the last 12 months. But yeah, that's
yeah,
Ben and I have made millions of dollars in sales. We've gone through every sales training that's out there, and we train our own teams in addition to hundreds of practitioners all over the country. Like we know what it takes to be successful with sales. We know it's not sales scripts. If you have the underlying beliefs down, you don't need any of that stuff. That's just beginner stuff when you need a script. But if you understand why people say no and you have the right foundational beliefs around sales and what it actually is, selling is extremely, extremely simple. So let me challenge some of you here. Have you been through an experience where a patient walks in, they haven't been able to feel like themselves in months because they haven't been able to actually run or haven't been able to work out the way they used to or be able to keep up with their kids like they used to? And that's been going on for months. Okay, you know exactly how to fix them. You walk them through your process. They seem bought in, and then you get to the point where it's time to actually enroll them into one of your care plans, but then you pull back. You downplay your packages, you whisper your price like there's something wrong with it, and then they say, I need to think about it. And you're like, that's no problem. I'll type up everything that we talked about here today. I'll send it over to you, and then you can give us a call back to get scheduled for your next visit. And then you never hear from them again. Okay. In that moment, when you clenched up and closed down and downplayed your services, who did you actually protect? Did you protect your patient from a big price point that would have felt a little uncomfortable to have to talk about? Or did you actually protect yourself out of fear of them saying, it's how much? Do I really need all that stuff? I need to think about it. Okay. you're protecting yourself. You're not protecting them. You're protecting your own ego instead of confidently outlining the consequence of them not moving forward, highlighting the gap between where they are and where they want to be and how what they've already tried hasn't been working. And instead of building that gap and confidently building up your value and explaining, here's the exact steps we're going to take to get you to where you're trying to go, you shrivel up and it creates tension. It creates an air of lack of confidence. And so whatever buildup and excitement and trust you've built up during that evaluation, it shrivels away as you shrivel away. And then you get patients saying, no, thank you. I need to think about it. I need to talk to my spouse. This is a lot. Do I really need that many visits? Not protecting yourself. So as you listen to this, make the promise to yourselves that you are no longer going to let patients stay in a position where they're stuck, they're not living life to the fullest because you're too afraid of having a potentially uncomfortable but honest conversation with someone else about what it actually takes to get where they're trying to go.
I think it'd be really powerful. I think the problem with it is that it's out of sight, out of mind. Like if somebody doesn't convert and move forward, you're not seeing them. You don't see what their life is like in a year to 5 years and how they're still stuck in the same unhealthy habits.
Yeah.
And how every single year that goes by of unhealthy habits, how much that's actually shaving off their life.
Right.
And all that could have been changed and prevented if you would have just leaned into it and learned how to do sales in an ethical way and actually challenge patients in a good way. Their life could be completely different. But I think that's the problem is we don't see the consequences because we don't see that patient again. But if we did, I think we were forced to face and see how that patient turned out down the road because we weren't able to do it. It would hit a lot harder, but because we don't, it doesn't.
Right. Right. And that's why it's like, and some practitioners say that sales or like helping people work through their false beliefs is unethical. It's like, how can you say that? How many more people could you have helped if you weren't afraid of genuine, authentic leadership? Like, are you a good friend if you let one of your friends continue to make self-defeating or have like self-defeating behavior, knowing what they actually want, and they just keep doing the same dumb thing over and over again that's preventing them from getting there? Are you a good friend for saying like, it's okay, it's your life, like do what you want, live your best life? Or a bad friend? That's a shitty friend. Right. Ben and I have a great relationship because we have no problem telling each other like hard truths, and it's almost always funny. Pretty much always funny. Okay. So as someone who is a healer, if you started your business, you have to learn how to lead. And leading means saying uncomfortable truths and being honest and being unattached from the outcome, because your job is only to challenge other people's beliefs that are preventing them from getting where they're trying to go so you can actually help them. That's a part of the job. If you're going to start a business, you don't only have to do that with your patients, you also have to do that with your teams.
Yeah. After trained over 20 PTs within ProKinetics, we've helped over 1,000 different clinic owners and their staff. Common thing that I can say very confidently is that the lack of ability to do sales and lean into sales is impacting patient results more than anything else.
Right.
Getting any certification out there will not outperform the results that you can get by learning sales and how to do it in an ethical way and be proficient at it. That is the biggest limiting factor into patients getting results than any skill set out there. I can say that unequivocally after helping this amount of people. And seeing the transformations of those that do and those that don't.
Right. So
we've had a couple clients that have had to shut down their businesses because they weren't willing to learn sales. How many people in their community are no longer going to be able to get the help this year, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, simply because that person wasn't willing to learn how to do sales in an ethical way.
Right.
Hundreds, thousands are impacted by that.
Right. 100%. And it's also why practices just fail to grow to what they could be, not just because they're not getting patients in the door, but it's also like you can't attract great talent because sales is used in every element of our life. If you can't get people to see in the vision that you have for other people, you don't have magnetism.
Mhm.
Okay, you have to be able to have an air of you when people are around you, their lives are going to get better. And if you don't truly believe that, or if you don't have this ability to sell people on your visions, you're going to struggle in your relationships. You're going to struggle in your business. You're going to struggle in every area of your life. Okay. And so I think a lot of practitioners, like, they resist selling and developing this as a clinical skill set because it is a clinical skill set. Because if you're not able to sell them on the modalities, the treatment, the things that they need to do when they're not with you, well, then they're not going to actually get better. And so this is a part of treatment. And so I think a lot of people resist it because they think sales is something that they do to people rather than for people. And that's kind of the first reframe that everyone has to go through, that's going to give them the comfort and the ability to challenge people on the false beliefs that they have, because you're not doing this to them. You're doing this to help them get the thing that they told you that they actually wanted.
Mhm.
Okay? So, we're going to cover a couple different things here. So, I hope if anything you take away from what Ben just said is that you can't heal someone that you don't enroll into one of your programs.
Yeah. I also want to double down that I put my money where my mouth is. I would hire, I have and would hire somebody had their OCS, they had their CSCS, one of the best clinicians that's come across our desk for application.
Yeah.
And I went with somebody that I didn't feel like they were going to be great at sales. They had money mindset issues. I went with somebody that was a new grad that had a great personality and was excited to learn sales. Guess what? One of our best PTs, right? So I literally made that decision that was going to impact my business. I knew from working with hundreds, thousands of PTs that I knew that that person would be able to get better outcomes for the patients in our practice than somebody with an OCS and CSCS.
Right.
I'd even go to the stream that even if somebody had their OCS, CSCS, SCS, everything, if they were not willing to learn sales and had a money mindset issue, I would hire that new grad that did not, because I know that their outcomes would be better. We actually lost a PT that was one of the best PTs that we've ever had on paper. He did not like the fact that we tracked KPIs on conversions. And why? Because new grads were outperforming him. And it was an ego hit, right? And so he had all these certifications under the sun, and he had this kind of persona that more or less he was better than other PTs, especially new grads, because of the degrees that or the certifications that he had. And he had over 7 years of experience on top of that. And he was, by data, black and white data, being shown that new grads were outperforming him and patients were coming back and wanting to work with them more than all these certifications, right? And so it's also very clear in the data that we have from hiring on over 20 plus PTs and who's successful and who's not, strictly from black and white data that we track on conversion rate and patient retention.
Right. Yeah, and that's another thing, because that I want to circle back to, like, logic-based selling. Okay, this is why clinicians have such a hard time selling, because they use logic. I'm a doctor. I have all these certifications. Of course, they want to buy. That's not why people buy. That is convincing. That is trying to convince someone of your value rather than persuading them, which is why people with way fewer credentials are able to actually outperform and outsell, because all clients care about is certainty in an outcome and clear visualization of the steps required for them to get there, and belief that they can actually do it. Those are the only things that are required to be able to make a sale. And that's why there's personal trainers selling rehab services that are selling like crazy, and in a lot of cases are winning on social media in some areas, because they understand that, and because they're overcompensating their lack of credentials with salesmanship. Okay. And I've been seeing this for years. There is like a correlation between how much education you have, how many credentials you have, and your ability to sell. Okay. There's obviously like some outliers, but it takes a long time to kind of break apart that ego and accept the fact that no one cares about your credentials besides your other friends who are practitioners.
Yep. 100%.
There's obviously like exceptions to that rule. Like if you're an oncologist, and yet someone has cancer, they're probably, it's important for you to be an oncologist, right? But it's when we're talking in physical therapy, especially in functional medicine, where credentials are just like almost imaginary to be able to call yourself a functional medicine provider. It's people don't care. People can't even agree on whether or not vaccines are a good thing or not. Okay. And you think that your credentials automatically mean people should trust and buy your stuff? There's a lot of doctors out there. There's a lot, and not all of them are good. And people know that now. 20, 30 years ago, probably a bigger factor than it is today. Right? So anyway, I digress. There's 5 core beliefs that we want to give you here today that we're going to rapid fire through, because these are, there's a lot of beliefs that Ben and I have around sales that make us great at it. But these are the 5 that we found to be the most important. We kind of hit on number 1 already, but it's like this belief that sales is gross, that it's pushy, that it's greedy. And what it really is sales is service. Okay. I get it. Like, you don't want to pressure or convince people of your value. You don't want people to think that you're greedy. You don't want to hear that you're too expensive. Okay. But again, like we said, it is not more noble to not develop the skill of sales. If anything, it's actually just rejection avoidance, because you're afraid of hearing those things and you clench up and just don't do it, rather than learning how to avoid those things and how to persuade people ethically into the programs that are likely going to like change the trajectory of their life. Okay. So we have to develop this skill. Okay. So like I was saying before, a lot of you hate sales because you think you're having to convince people. Okay. But sales isn't convincing someone to buy something they don't need, don't want, or can't afford. Okay. Real sales is ethical persuasion, which is the exact opposite. Persuasion is helping someone make a decision they already want to make for their own reasons, not yours. And so we're asking them questions like, how long has this been going on for? What have you already tried to solve that? Why do you think those things haven't worked? What do you think's wrong that's preventing you from doing this? What happens if you don't do anything about this? What are you afraid of is going to happen? And now we're asking them guiding questions, and they're telling their own story and coming to their own conclusion that they need to do something about this right now. And so most of sales is not you talking. It's not a lecture. It's literally you talking 20% of the time and just asking questions that lead your prospects to the best answer for themselves, whether that's working with you or somebody else.
Yeah. And helping them realize too, just how much it's impacting them too. One of my favorite questions is like, most people struggle with piercing questions. So piercing questions, for those that don't know, it's like diving deeper into how it's actually impacting them. Like a lot of people ask like, yeah, I want to get, my knee pain fixed. Okay. Right. Well, another piercing question is like, okay, well, what would you be able to do if you didn't have this knee pain? Or what would you be able to get back to doing? Like, oh, I'd love to run again. Most people will stop at like maybe one piercing question. Yeah. That's like, okay, I can help you get back to running. And then they move on to the next question. You want to dive even deeper, be like, hey, curious. Like, we see tons of runners and they all have different motivating factors of like why they actually want to get back to running. Some it's because they want to be able to get their stress relief. They want to get their runner's high. It allows them to have a better, clear head for work. They work better. They're not stressed. Yeah. Some are for, aesthetics. They want to look good, right? For you, I'm curious, what is the main reason that you want to get back to running, right? So I like to pre-frame like, one, the social proof that we know what they're probably going through, because when you can articulate the struggles of why they actually want to get back to running, they see themselves as the right provider to help them because you understand them. And it also shows that you also help tons of other runners, right? Like Jordan just said, it's all of one of the 3 main things is their conviction and certainty that they're going to get X results. When you start telling stories of other people just like them that you've worked with, that certainty increases, right? And so by also giving them those different like examples, it also gets them to maybe think deeper about like, hey, why do I actually want to run? They might have actually really thought about it recently. Like they're just so focused, like, I just want to get back to running. By slowing things down and actually asking them that question, it helps them realize that it's so much deeper. Some people on the phone calls have already thought about that, and it's just getting them to verbalize it. Some it's actually getting them to really channel and think about, why do I love running? Oh, I guess I do love running because I'm such a better person. I'm not as stressed. Yeah, I want to get back to running. Now you're not just helping someone with knee pain. Now you're just not helping somebody get back to running. Now you're helping somebody become a better version of themselves, right? And that's the reason that piercing questions is so important, because without that, you're just fixing knee pain, right?
And that's a commodity. That is a commodity a million things can fix. Yeah, we have to ignore the surface level questions, pierce to find the deeper reason, motivation for why is now the time that, why'd you decide to reach out now? What's actually going on? How's that impacting your day to day? Because without those things, everything's going to seem expensive, because again, you're solving a commodity, very cheap thing to solve. And we got to understand that emotions are what open up people's wallets, not logic. Logic is what people use to justify the decision they already made. And so if you're using logic, that is when you're convincing somebody. But if you keep asking the questions, digging to understand their true motivations and their fears around, what if this doesn't happen? What if this doesn't change? What if things continue to get worse? Where does that leave us? That is what gets people to decide, it's like, okay, now the problem's real. I need to do something about this now, for their own reasons that they vocalized and said to you. Because when they say it out loud, it becomes real. And as long as you're using logic, you're just talking at them, and you're not allowing them to come to their own conclusion that they need to move forward. So powerful. So the second belief, that this is probably actually the number one killer of every sale that people go into. Like, the other pieces are really important as a foundation, but this kills the most sales. Prospects, sorry, before we move on to that, the new belief is, again, selling is service. We're doing this for people, not to people. Now, the second biggest false belief that's killing most sales is, I really need this prospect to say yes. It's going into the sales conversation trying to make a sale, which sounds counterintuitive, but it's the reason no one is converting and nobody is buying. What do you think about when you hear that, Ben?
Yeah, patients can hear desperation in your voice and know when you feel like you want it more than they do. That just turns people off. So
100%, because you're going into it thinking like, okay, I've bills to pay, I got payroll, I'm stressed out, I really need a patient to come in, my schedule's looking pretty light. Okay, I need someone to join in. Okay, that energy is the biggest repellent ever, and it also prevents you from asking the tougher questions that you would have asked if you didn't care about making that sale. And that's where true leadership comes from. Okay, so the belief that you need to have moving forward is your prospects need you far more than you need them. Because yeah, sure, like them buying a package and full paying, that might cover one of your bills. That might give you extra money to go out and have some fun this month. Who knows, whatever it is, but it's only going to help you for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
If they commit fully to your packages and your treatment plan, it's going to change them for the rest of their lives. Mm-hmm. Let that sink in. You need to go into all of your conversations knowing for a fact that this person needs me far more than I need them, and be completely emotionally unattached from that outcome. And instead of playing the I need this sale to close game, you need to detach yourself and play the numbers game. Okay, you need to find out what your conversion rate is, whether it's 40%, 50%, 80%, whatever it is, so that you know out of every 10 calls, 4, 5, 6 of these are going to close. So that when you're talking to somebody, you don't know which one they're going to be. You don't care. All you care about is getting your 10 calls in. And so when you have that frame and you have that perspective, that's when you have the energy that's calm, that's certain, that is leadership energy, because you're willing to ask people the tough questions that if you were really attached to the outcome, you wouldn't ask. Things like, It sounds like you've tried a lot of treatment before and you didn't really commit to all those things. I guess are you more committed now? Like, why is this going to work this time around? Challenge them, because their own behavior, their lifestyles are the reason they keep getting into this hole. And you don't want them on your schedule if they're just going to drop out like they did at other places after you find out they've tried a bunch of PT before and they just never stick with it. If you're too attached to it, you're gonna say things like, "Oh yeah, we're completely different. We listen to your whole story. We have 60-minute sessions with the doctor of physical therapy. It's completely different." It's not. They might try it for a session, hear your price, and then bounce, because they don't actually know what's different, because you didn't show them that you're different by actually challenge them and being the leader that they've been looking for and need. You don't need the sale. Remove that and realize they need you far more than you need them. All your job is to find out if they are ready, if they have a problem that you can help them with, and if they're finally ready to do something about it. That's your only job. And guiding them through questions to figure all those things out so that they can come to their own conclusion on it. Anything to layer into that one?
No, I think people, again, just forget just how impactful what we do is. And yeah, that sell is going to help you pay your bills for a very short period of time. This is going to change somebody's life forever. There's just like a 60-minute episode where Peter Attia was on talking about longevity.
He's crazy, dude. Peter Thiel is not.
Yeah,
sorry, continue.
He's talking about, like, what he's got, people paying him hundreds of thousands of dollars to work with him. Mm-hmm. And it always went down to, he never talked about what commodity piece you're getting, like, oh, you're getting a VO2 max testing here, you don't get that. He simply asked, I don't know, what would that be able to add an extra 4 or 5 years to your life and be able to experiences with your grandchildren that you wouldn't otherwise be able to? What's that worth to you?
Right.
Perfect sales example. He wasn't selling the VO2 max testing. He wasn't selling all this other bullshit. It was just simply an outcome of what are you willing to pay to have 5 years extra of your life to be able to experience different experience you otherwise wouldn't with your grandkids. It's invaluable. You could charge more than 100,000.
And now that you're sold on that outcome, you don't care about the process, because all you bought the transformation, and they gave you a clear path in order to get there. They didn't care how. They just were sold the outcome, and they're in. Okay, and that actually leads perfectly into our third false belief, which is, I am selling visits, modalities, and other like features of our program, like 60-minute sessions with the doctor of physical therapy. Okay, that is not what you're selling. And if you are selling that, you're selling features. That is selling, again, with logic. When you use logic and features to sell your programs, well, that is where people start to have objections. Okay, because they don't understand how the features of your package correlate to the outcome that they need, and they start trying to pick and choose. Well, do I really need this? Do I really need that? Do I need this many sessions? Do I need to do that? All of those things. They don't care about that stuff. And all you do is you create confusion and complexity with the process, and a confused buyer never buys. And so before you ever get into how we're going to do that, you need to focus entirely on the what it is that we're going to do. You got to focus on the transformation. They have to see it. They have to feel it. They have to envision what it's actually going to be like to have that thing. That is what you're selling them. And once they're bought into the process and you getting there, pillars 1 through 3, identify the core problem, get you out of pain, prevent future injuries from ever happening. 3-step process doesn't say anything about how many or the things we're going to be doing in between those stages. We gave them a clear roadmap. We gave them the outcome, and that is what gets sold, because people don't argue with outcomes. They argue with features. And a lot of you, because you are embarrassed or afraid to ask the questions around, like, what's your dream outcome look like? Okay, I guess what happens if you do nothing? Are you going to get there? Would you rather be the person that does nothing and stays exactly where you are, the person that does whatever it takes to get where they're trying to go? Person B, perfect. Here's what it's going to cost. Okay, because you're unwilling to ask questions like that, you're left to peddle the list and the line items of your packages which force you into the commodity bucket because they can go anywhere and get any one of those things. So yeah, Ben, how do you like train your teams to focus on the transformations and the things that the patients actually want? Because nobody woke up with back pain praying for 8 visits. They woke up praying to be able to sleep through the night again. So it's like, how do you convey that and teach that to your staff?
Yeah, it's just, again, just like what we've been talking about, just asking better questions is what it comes down to. Also outlining their journey of what it's going to look like. That was one of the other 3 pillars that you mentioned. We have a visual graphic so they can understand exactly what that looks like. And you also get less drop-offs because they understand, like, hey, just come out of pain doesn't mean I'm done. I know that's just actually the first phase of what we do at ProKinetics, right? And so we really map out the journey for people with that. And then, yeah, just asking really solid questions and piercing questions about how it's really, really, truly impacting them and getting them to verbalize exactly what their thoughts are to make it actually real, like you were saying earlier.
Right. And I know a lot of you've seen the same kind of patient a million times, and you understand, like, what they really want, and you kind of get why. You still have to ask it, because it's not about whether or not you know it. It's whether your prospect knows that they know it. And if that pain is felt in their chest in that moment that you're trying to make the sale. So even though you might know and you might understand, you still have to ask, because them vocalizing it is what makes it real. Them vocalizing it is what makes it hard for them to say no, because now it feels stupid to say no. Because they just told you all the things that are going to happen, all the consequences are going to happen if they do nothing about this, and why all the other things they tried haven't worked yet.
Right.
Now, right.
Yeah, it's just like also like people, like when somebody says like, yeah, I just don't know if I have enough time. Like, hey, totally understand. We can also space this out to like every other week. Can you find just 2 hours out of the entire month to give you a shot at being able to get back to being able to play with your kids in the background, in the backyard? Are you able to just find 2 hours out of your month to be able to get back to running so you can do X, Y, and Z, right? Somebody would have to verbally say, no, I can't find 2 hours out of my entire month to be able to find enough time to be able to get back to playing catch with my son in the backyard.
Right.
It'd sound insane, right? Mm-hmm. So getting them to verbalize that is so powerful, and then you're going to realize how ridiculous that is.
Right. It's like, okay, you don't have time. What, do you drive to work? Yeah. What if your car broke down? Are you going to go get it fixed? Maybe like take the time to get a rental car? How much time is that how long do you think it's going to take to get the car fixed and get your car back? Okay, it's going to be a while. Mm-hmm. So you're saying that if your car broke down, you would allocate the time to fix the car, but the body, the thing that you have to drive around for the rest of your entire life, you don't have you don't have 1 to 2 hours a week to fix, to make sure that it keeps running for the rest of your life. Longer, better, faster, stronger. We have to be comfortable challenging people on these. Otherwise, they're going to keep making the same stupid decisions. That's going to lead to a worse life, and that's on you.
Right. Well, Will brought up a good point. One of our coaches of how he challenges patients too is like, $3,000
gold.
Yeah, $3,000 car is a shitty car, but you're willing to buy that, but you're not willing to invest $2,000 into a body that you're going to have for the rest of your life.
Yep.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I love that. That was gold when he dropped that. That was at our recent scaling workshop where we had almost 40 practice owners fly into my home city of Milwaukee. That was an epic event.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Right. All right. On to our last 2 here. False belief number 4. No one's going to pay $2,000 for a package. So I'm going, that's greedy to ask for that much. And it's really expensive. Nobody's going to afford that. Okay. Real healers shouldn't be charging that much. There's so many other people that need my help that can't afford this. I'll lose them if I actually pitch the real number. Like, all these things are what most people think about when they're about to pitch their price. Then it causes them to clench up, to whisper their price, to downsell their programs, to offer a program that they don't actually need because they're afraid to say the real number. Okay. But all of those things that you're thinking, that you're telling yourself, that's really a story about you. That's not a story about your patients. You're projecting your own price sensitivity onto other people's problems, and it's crushing your conversions, your confidence, and everything else, because your pricing isn't just a way for the clinic owner to pay themselves with. That's not what it's about. your pricing, the new belief that we want you to have is that your premium pricing is a part of treatment. Okay, Ben, you've been preaching this for years. Like, why is it best for the patient, not just the clinic, but best for the patient to charge a premium price tag?
Well, one, at the same time, you can only hire great talent if you can pay them, right? So it allows us to hire great talent. Also, you're just gonna get better buy-in from the patient. People that pay attention. This is
Mm,
why we actually get such great results too. Is just because people are actually paying more, so they're more likely to actually go home and do their home exercise program. Like, hey, if I'm gonna be paying, dishing out $2,000 for this program, I'm gonna adhere to it. I'm gonna do it,
mm,
right? One of the biggest, probably it's number two. Um, I would probably how I'd rank it for patients, the things impacting patients from getting results is inability of PTs to do sales. Two is HEP compliance, and then third is maybe like skill set. I put HEP compliance number two thing that prevents people from getting results. Their HEP compliance skyrockets when people are paying a premium rate. So you just
right.
simply are going to get better results.
Seriously. And the perceived value, the higher the price, the higher the perceived value. The higher the perceived value, the more the belief in what it is that they're actually getting. And so they believe that the outcome is even more likely because they paid more, because there's an inherent belief that things that cost more are better. This has been proven dozens and dozens of times. There's a famous wine study. I'm not going to go into it, but look it up. A wine study on price perception. Okay. When things cost more, they believe that they're going to get a better outcome. And so you get higher perceived value. So when we found like a lot of clinics lose their mind when they almost double their prices sometimes and their conversion rates actually go up. Because how good can you actually be if you're $125, $150 compared to all of the other people? You can't be that much better. People don't believe it. No matter what your credentials are, your price says a lot about you because the patient maybe knows you for 60 minutes, maybe a 10-minute conversation. They're using whatever tools they have to make their best judgment. They don't know you. They're using your price to measure you up, to size you up. Okay. So high investment, high perceived value. High investment means higher commitment because of the new belief in that perceived value. Higher commitment means there's real change because they're actually doing the things that they're telling you to do because they don't want it to be a waste of their money. They actually want the results. They don't want to look and feel stupid for spending the money and not doing it. And high prices fund world-class care. Okay, allows you to get the best treatment space, allows you to invest in the best equipment, allows you to invest in the absolute best team. And if you think you can offer the highest tier, highest level service possible on a competitive pricing model, you're high. You're crazy if you think you can do that. And so, if you want to offer the highest level of service humanly possible, you have to be charging premium rates. And it's not just for the business; it's for your patients. It creates the environment. It creates the container where true transformation is possible. It's hard to transform people's lives on a really low level really low price model. Um, I've even had the case where some people are like, I just want to treat communities that don't have access to this level of care, so I charge way less. Noble. I love that. I love hearing that. Foolish from a business perspective because there's an order of operations to make that happen. Because if you're charging only $100 a session to help the lower income people within your community, what you're doing is you're starving the business's ability to help more people. You might help a few people, but on that pricing model, you're not going to be able to hire a team. You're not going to be able to invest in marketing. So people aren't going to hear about you the way that you want them to. You might get some referrals, but you're not going to grow to the scale because you can't hire a team. Now, if you do this the other way, you start premium, you build a self-sustaining premium practice model. Instead of pocketing all those profits, what we've seen people do is then take those profits to reinvest into nonprofits specifically designed for those low income communities. But now they have the margins to build a team around that program. They have resources to invest in marketing about that program. Now it runs itself and they have the finances to be able to push it, sustain it, while also not taking your time and energy. Which one of those two models is going to help more people? The latter, every single time. And so, if that's your dream, Start with premium models, build a sustaining practice, build up your cash flow, and then invest in changing the world like that.
Yeah, and the thing is too, even at $100, you're still going to be pricing out a population. You're always, until it's free, you're going to be pricing out a population. And I think that's where people, it all comes just down to that internal thermostat. They see other PTs charging 200. Well, I'm at 100, so I'm more noble. It's not free. The people are now, based on that same theory, people are offering free services are more noble than you. What if you just learned how to do sales and actually charge premium rates? Now you can offer pro bono services where it's completely free and be able to help 100% of people.
Right. And it's also crazy to assume that the people charging more didn't have an incredibly hard time doing that, because they're also healers. They're also givers. That was it's uncomfortable for everyone as they're increasing their prices. So is it more noble to stay comfortable and help fewer people because of it? Or is it more noble to overcome your own fears and your own internal voice so that you can help more people at scale because you have a thriving, healthy business? It's not a philosophy podcast, but I could dig into that one for a while. Okay, one last quick one. Okay, the belief that you are a clinician, not a salesperson. This has to stop. That has to stop, because that is, in my belief, a huge part of why preventative care and taking care of ourselves isn't more common. It's not it's starting to become more normalized as more and more health professionals develop the skills of persuasion and understand buyer psychology. But it's taken this long because every single doctor would rather be an order taker than someone that knows how to ethically influence other people into living healthier lives. What do you think on that?
Yeah, I mean, it just comes down to, it's so flip-flopped. It's the ethical that people feel is ethical is actually unethical. And what's people feel is unethical is actually ethical.
Right. It's easier for our ego to label it as noble and, sales is unethical than it is to accept the fact that you just don't want to do it because it's uncomfortable.
Yep.
So anyways, folks, if you have questions on any of these things, don't hesitate to reach out. If you would like to learn how to close more patients ethically, where it doesn't feel like there's a ton of pressure, where people are saying yes more often because what you've laid out in the process you made makes your premium offer a no-brainer, go to clinicalmarketer.com. Apply to work with us. We'll have an open and honest conversation about where your practice is at to see if you're in the right position to partner with Ben and I to help grow and scale your practice, to develop these skills so that you can also build a self-sustaining practice that has a massive impact on your community, on your patients, and on your family. Thanks for listening.